Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. Today on The Young and the Restless, Kyle expresses interest in Jack's well-being. Billy thinks Phyllis is spiraling and Diane approaches Victor with a scheme. All products and services featured are independently chosen by editors. However, soaps.com may receive a commission on orders placed through its retail links, and the retailer may receive certain auditable data for accounting purposes. At Crimson Lights, Christine approaches Chance. He was surprised to get her call, thinking she was off living the rock star life. Christine says she had to come back because Daniel is worried the police are trying to build a case against him. She wants to know if Daniel is going to be charged in Heather's murder. Chance wants to settle in before they get into it. Chris tells him how happy she is that he's back on the force, but warns him not to say that to Nina, who's upset. Chance tells Christine that he doesn't know exactly where things stand for Daniel. Christine asserts that he's innocent. Chance tells her the evidence is piling up. Chris replies, "A little too conveniently, don't you think?" Chance shrugs that it's up to the DA. Christine reminds him that Daniel is mourning right now and needs to take care of his daughter. "I really hope you don't go after the wrong person." In their suite at the club, Lucy and Daniel joke about her taking after her mother with her ability to fit a lot into one bag. Lucy hates that he's asking her to go away. Daniel doesn't want her to go. Lucy knows he thinks it's for the best and won't fight him on it anymore. Daniel thinks sending her to hang out with her rock star grandfather has to make him a cool dad. Lucy says not really, but she'll miss him anyway. She confides that she's scared. Daniel knows. He'll miss her too, which is why he came up with an idea. Daniel hands Lucy a friendship bracelet kit. He reminds her that she made him a bracelet when they mended fences. It gave him comfort, and he can't tell her how much it means to him. He wants her to have a bracelet which is a way to remind her how much he loves her. He'd have made it himself, but he didn't know how. Lucy would love to do it together. They start picking out colors to represent Daniel, Lucy, and Heather. Even if they look weird together, they represent them. He chuckles that their family's a little weird anyway. Lucy thinks they're perfect. Phyllis finds Billy in his office at Abbott Chancellor and is relieved he's there. She sits heavily on the sofa and groans. Billy asks about Daniel and Lucy. She updates him on her son, sending Lucy on the tour. "It's bad. It's really, really bad. My son is being set up. The police think he killed Heather." Billy's taken aback. Phyllis complains that her son is being framed and Chance is following that trail like an obedient dog. He is completely blind. She thinks the person who is really responsible is Sharon. "Sharon is framing my son for murder." Billy tells Phyllis that it sounds outrageous to say Sharon murdered Heather and is setting up Daniel. Phyllis says that's what she's counting on everyone thinking. She was attacking Heather before she died. There were problems with her bipolar meds too. Maybe they made her do something crazy. Now she's trying to pin it on Daniel. She's always blamed him for Cassie's death, and this is the ultimate payback. Billy tells Phyllis she's grasping. Phyllis says she's not. It's so obvious to her what Sharon has done. Billy thinks she should go home and not worry about work. "It seems like you're spinning out." Phyllis insists it's true. Billy tells her this isn't serving her. Phyllis asks if she's spinning out like he says she needs something to ground her. "Hire me back." She wants him to hire Daniel too. Billy isn't about to negotiate with her when she's like this, and he won't hire someone who could be up on murder charges. Phyllis wants to work behind the scenes. She already has ideas about how to strike back at Newman Media. Billy asks if any of these ideas have to do with wild accusations that could come back to haunt her. Phyllis wants him to meet her halfway. Billy doesn't know how else to say this, but he cannot be distracted from his launch. He doesn't have time for wild accusations, and he can't hire her son. Phyllis is sorry. She thought he was her friend. Billy urges her to take some time at home for the betterment of her family. He has to go. He will talk to Jill about the situation and convince her he can get things back on track. "I'm not going to lose this company because of you or anyone else." At the Abbott house, Kyle finds Jack pacing in the living room. He asks, "Dad, you okay?" Jack scoffs that it almost sounds like he wants to know. He thought he didn't care about them. "Are you really upset about what's happened between your mother and me?" Kyle says it was disturbing to see them fight like that. He didn't realize the extent that things had deteriorated. He confides that he confronted his mother yesterday to see if she was really a monster. Unsurprisingly, she didn't admit to anything. But she did say when she came back to town, she wanted it all. Jack nods. It's what everyone warned them about. Kyle asks, "Did she ever really love us?" Jack doesn't know. Kyle asks how it got to this point. Jack says it all comes down to one thing: you. Nikki and Victor enter the club dining room and walk past Diane, who approaches their table as they get seated. They ask her to go away, but Diane thinks they'll be pleased about what she has to say. "Jack and I split up. Our marriage is over." Nikki's not surprised or sad about it. Diane invites her to gloat. Nikki just might. She asks what made Jack come to his senses. "What did you do?" Diane says Jack accused her of being a gold-digging narcissist. He threw her out of the house. Victor asks why she's telling them. Is there something she wants? Diane wants to get ahead of the slander that's coming. This was all Jack's fault. Nikki laughs. She doubts that. Diane complains that she was committed to her marriage. Nikki says now that Jack is done with her, they can go back to shunning her. Victor asks Diane what reason she has to stay in Genoa City. Diane snaps, "I have plenty of reasons." Diane is sure Victor knows how irrational Jack is. He destroyed their family. Nikki snaps, "Oh, come on." Victor tells her to go on. Diane says Kyle undermined her. Victor understands the importance of having your children's loyalty. Nikki warns her not to compare their families. Diane's point is that Kyle treated her terribly, and she held him to account. She knows if Victor was in her place, he'd have done the same thing. Victor feuds at her for coming to their table and ranting, and asks what she wants to do. Diane wants to make her family feel her pain for themselves. At the Abbott mansion, Jack complains to his son that Diane wouldn't take any of the blame for turning him against them. Kyle protests, "You make it sound like I turned to the dark side." Jack states, "You stole from the family company, Kyle. You don't think that's a step too far?" Kyle denies stealing anything. Jack can't have this conversation. He's tired and feels like a failure. "I have failed this family in every way. This is not what I wanted and certainly not what my father wanted." Kyle asks what he has to do with this. Jack says Victor made a dig the other day, asking what his father would think of him now. This is all because he couldn't see Diane for what she is, and put her about Kyle. It pushed him away. He loved her, but he failed Kyle, and that's worse than losing Diane. In their suite, Lucy asks Daniel if he's scared. He says no. He couldn't do anything wrong, and he's sure Chance will see that. He also has Christine on his side if it comes to that. He tells his daughter it's okay to be afraid. Daniel wants her to promise she won't spend all of her time worrying about him. Lucy makes a face. "We just lost Mom. It feels like we should be together, not apart. Everything's hard enough as it is." Daniel promises this will work out and they'll be back together soon. That nothing will keep them apart ever again. Billy finds Jack in society and agrees to join him for breakfast. Jack asks how Phyllis is doing over at Abbott Chancellor. He's sure the news about Heather was a shock. Billy thinks she's having a tough time of it. Jack's sure she's grateful to have her work to focus on. Billy admits he had to unhire her at his mother's insistence. Jack can see Jill's point. This may be the first smart decision he's made. Billy warns he'll walk out if this turns into a dump on Billy's session. In the club dining room, Diane tells Victor if he wants to see Jack pay, she's giving him the opportunity. Kyle needs to face the humiliation of a massive failure, one that will strip him of his ego and force him to grow up. Nikki can't believe she'd do this to her family. Diane tells her that after the way they treated her, they deserve it. She tells Victor that to see Kyle fail would be a knife through Jack's heart. Victor asks what plot Diane has in mind. She hasn't made any concrete decisions, but when she does, she could use his help. He can find her right upstairs if he wants to get in touch. As Diane walks off, Nikki fumes about her painting herself as the victim. She asks why Victor even heard her out. What was that about? In their suite, Daniel and Lucy are almost done the bracelet. Lucy wants to make another one for her mom. Daniel thinks she would love that. Lucy muses that even though she wasn't her bio mom, she felt connected to her, in their souls. Daniel doesn't think that sounds weird. Lucy frets that they haven't had a funeral for her. Daniel promises when this is over, they'll have a celebration of life. Lucy's scared to see her in a coffin or buried. Daniel tells Lucy that Heather would want her to remember her the way she was. She was so proud to be her mom. Lucy was honored to be her daughter. In the park, Diane comes upon Phyllis, who is leaving Diane a voicemail asking Daniel not to let Lucy leave before she can get there and say goodbye. Diane says she wanted to extend her condolences. Phyllis isn't buying it. They hate each other. Diane thinks some things should transcend that. Phyllis knows her even if she has Kyle and Jack snowed. Diane insists she's more than her past, just as Phyllis claims to be. Phyllis has to go help her family, which is in crisis and can't get distracted by this. She rushes off. In the club, Nikki takes Victor to task for encouraging Diane. He made it seem like he was considering working with her against Jack. Victor claims he just wanted to see how far she would go. Nikki doesn't want to know the answer to that. In society, Jack apologizes to Billy for his remark. He's off today. Jack admits that the other day, he and Diane had a very intense, public fight, and he believes his marriage is over. Billy's never been a big fan of hers, but he thought they were in a good place. Jack says she hasn't evolved at all. She finally admitted she came back to claim a place at Java. She's power hungry. Billy asks if he really thinks it's that simple. Jack's afraid so. Billy's sorry. Jack says there might be some hope in all of this. For the first time in months, he felt a thaw between him and Kyle. Is it possible the only way to heal his rift with Kyle was to lose Diane? Phyllis meets Lucy and Daniel in the lobby of the club to say goodbye to her granddaughter. She urges her to have a great time with her grandpa. They hug, and then Lucy hugs Daniel. She asks him to keep her updated on everything. He promises and asks for a picture of her onstage with Danny dancing. Phyllis quips, "Rock on." Lucy heads out the door. Phyllis asks Daniel if she can buy him breakfast. He just wants to go upstairs and get room service. She agrees to go with him. Chance appears and Daniel hopes he's got good news. Chance says he just heard from the district attorney. "Daniel, you are under arrest for the murder of Heather Stevens."